everyone, I'm Chef David Jahnke, and today I would like to share a few details about different types of knife sharpeners and also to show you how to sharpening your knife the correct way. Some people are afraid of having a very sharp knife, but to be honest, it's safer. Your knife, if it's dual, probably it won't cut through the items and you probably could slip or slide away with your knife and could hurt yourself. So it's very important that you always have your knife sharpened. Your knife is there to cut through things. And if your knife is not sharp enough, now they're not going to cut through that easy. And you start squeezing or pushing your items down, which could hurt the surface or the fiber of the items, and which could affect the quality of your final product which you're cutting. There are many different types of gadgets to sharpening your knife. For example, let's start with the sharpening stones. Sharpening stones, they're usually two-sided. And they come numbered by the grit, by the amount of grit. So we have a rough surface and a fine surface. The rough surface is like to make like the rough work on your knife, let's say it like that. And for the finishing sharpening, we use always like the fine side. And like I said, there are different types, and usually it's always amount the grit you want to take a look. Finer your knife, better is that your grit also will have a high amount. Beside, we also have those same sharpening stones. For example, they can come in different, let's say, sizes or forms. Because, for example, this is a knife here from my Mukimono set, which is like to make food carving and vegetable carvings. And for that, how I'm going to supposed to be sharpening a blade like that, I need to have a sharpening stone with an angle, which now gives me the possibility to sharpening those knives again, no? These sharpening stones, they're usually made of compressed material, and there's also natural stones. For example, there's like river stones. They also use for the sharpening, and they also cut them down, so we can use them just like as those same ones here. They have the same size and forms. And in that case, they're usually just one-sided. A good tip for those stones is just to maintain them stable. Always I would recommend you put like a wet towel below. And another thing would be also, if you like, now you can purchase those stone holders, which are pretty much better than anything else you could use below to keep them stable on your table. And you can adjust them to any kind of size of sharpening stone, and they're pretty worth buying if you like to sharpening with sharpening stones. Another tool to sharpening your knife would be those sharpening steels, no? Those ones, they could be made of just like stainless steel. They could be made, they could have like a layer of diamond powder on the top, or they could be made of ceramic. Those are very good if you, for example, just sharpen your knife and you just want to get it back again, like refine it again, or it would be good. But if your knife is in very bad shape, this one will not get the sharp back to your knife. You need to have a stronger tool than just like those steels. But they're very common, and they usually always come with knife sets. And in that case, I would prefer the ceramic one or the ones with the diamond powder. They're a little bit better than just the stainless steel. To sharpening our knife, we have to keep an angle of 15 to 20% to lift up our knife a little bit, to create a very thin layer on the bottom part of our blade. And that angle we would have, we would use on the whetstone and also on top on the steel. If we would use one of those manual choppers, which I already said I don't recommend because they just scratch the complete blade. But in that case, if you use them, you just pass the knife straight from the end all the way to the top of the knife. Tip or trick for your sharpening stone, we always have to use some liquid. Some people like to use oil and some people like to use water. In that case, I always recommend storage them in the liquid you prefer to use. Those whetstones, they will absorb a lot of the liquid, which makes the sharpening process much more efficient and also easier. You always have to have some moist during the sharpening process. You are going to use those manual sharpeners. Make sure that your knife is not one of those knives with the bolts on the bottom here, because this is impossible to get through it. So after a while you will just sharpening the front part of your knife and not the back part, and now it gets uneven, and after a certain time it will not work as efficient anymore. That's why I don't recommend knife with bolsters on the bottom or those type of sharpeners. If you use a steel, then I recommend this the same like we said, always lift up your angle a little bit so you can do the sharpening process, and little by little try to get it backward from the front part of the blade, and always get that angle from both sides to slowly completely sharpening your knife with it. Going to use a whetstone. I just took it out of the water, so it's nice moist. It doesn't matter if you use water or oil. I always recommend have those liquids close to you in doing the sharpening process. Always have a towel so you can clean your knife and take off the particles from the sharpening process. That's the first part. Here I'm using a stone holder which has like a rubber base. You can buy them online and adjust them to any type of stone or any size. They're very comfortable and they help a lot to maintain the stone stable during the sharpening process. Always have some liquid beside, always add more liquid. And now to sharpening a knife, make sure you have the correct angle. Lift up your knife about 15 to 20 degrees. That's the angle we should keep. And go all the way from the top of the knife all the way through to the end. And now when you do that, you do the same thing to the opposite side. If you're going to sharpen your knife with a whetstone, always have liquid. The same liquid you storage your stone, could be oil or water. You always should have some aside of it to also use it during the sharpening process. To sharpen your knife, have an angle of uplifting the back part of your knife to a degree of 15 to 20%. And now start pulling the whole blade through from the top all the way to the end. I always say like push it back to the back part of the knife, not against the angle you're trying to create in the front part of the knife on the bottom part, because this is the thinnest part and we need it for the cutting. So I always recommend push it back the same when we turn it over and do it the opposite side, and always have the correct angle of 15 to 20%. Always add more moist during the sharpening process. That's very important. And also always have a towel beside it so you can clean your knife during the sharpening process and take all those small metal particles away. Watching my video, I hope it was helpful. I will also add all the information below the video in text so you can read it anytime you want to. I'm Chef David Jahnke. Thanks for joining me today.